September 12th, 490 BC. On a narrow coastal plain 26 miles from Athens, 10,000 Greek soldiers stood face to face with the most powerful military force the world had ever seen. The Persian Empire, spanning continents and commanding vast armies, came to crush the rebellious city-state that defied them. What happened next was improbable and brilliant, changing Western civilization. This is the real story behind Marathon, the battle that history books don't fully explain. At this point in history, the Persian Empire was unstoppable. Under King Darius the Great, Persia controlled everything from India to Egypt, 28 nations, 70 million people. No empire in human history had ever been larger. And now, Darius wanted revenge. 10 years earlier, Athens had made a fatal mistake. They'd sent 20 ships to support Greek cities in Asia Minor that were rebelling against Persian rule. The Persians crushed the rebellion. They burned the city of Sardis to the ground. Darius didn't forget. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, the Persian king ordered a servant to repeat 3 times at every dinner, "Master, remember the Athenians." In 490 BC, Darius launched his invasion. 600 warships, 25,000 elite infantry, the best cavalry in the ancient world. Their mission was simple: destroy Athens, enslave its people, and install a puppet tyrant to ensure Greece would never threaten Persia again. The Persians landed at Marathon, a strategic beach, with enough flat ground for their cavalry to dominate. They expected Athens to surrender. They expected reinforcements from Sparta. Neither happened. When news reached Athens that the Persian fleet had landed, the city faced an impossible choice: surrender and live as slaves, or fight and almost certainly die. The Athenian assembly voted to fight. They mobilized every able-bodied citizen, about 10,000 hoplites. These heavily armored infantry fought in tight phalanxes. But they weren't professionals. Farmers, merchants, and craftsmen bought their own armor and trained only a few times a year. Athens sent a runner to Sparta begging for help. The Spartans, Greece's most feared warriors, agreed to come. But there was a problem. Spartan religious law forbade them from marching to war until the full moon. That was 6 days away. Athens couldn't wait. The 10 Athenian generals, elected politicians, not career officers, marched their outnumbered army to Marathon. Among them was a man named Miltiades, a veteran who'd fought the Persians before and understood their tactics. For 5 full days, the two armies stared at each other from across the plain. Neither side moved. Tension grew with each sunrise. The Greeks couldn't attack charging downhill into Persian arrows, and cavalry would be suicide. The Persians couldn't advance the narrow valley, negated their numerical advantage. It was a stalemate. Until Persian scouts noticed something. A portion of the Persian cavalry, their most devastating weapon, was boarding ships. Ancient sources suggest they were preparing to sail around Cape Sonion and attack a defenseless Athens directly. The window to strike had opened, and it would close in hours. Miltiades convinced the other generals, attack now, or Athens falls without a fight. The Athenians formed their battle line, but Miltiades did something revolutionary. Traditional phalanx tactics called for equal strength across the line. Miltiades deliberately weakened his center and reinforced both wings. It was a massive gamble. If the center broke too quickly, the Persians would pour through and slaughter the Greeks from behind. At dawn, the Greeks advanced. Not a march, a full sprint. Herodotus writes that the Persians thought the Athenians had gone mad. No one charged heavy infantry across a mile of open ground without cavalry or archer support. It was suicide. But Miltiades understood what the Persians didn't. By sprinting, the Greeks minimized their exposure to Persian arrows. By quickly closing the distance, they prevented the Persians from forming a proper defensive formation. The two armies collided with catastrophic force. Exactly as Miltiades predicted, the Persian center pushed back the weakened Greek middle. The Athenian line bent. Soldiers in the back ranks could see their front line buckling, hear the screams of men being cut down. But on the wings, both flanks, the reinforced Greek formations crushed the Persian line. And then came the turning point. Instead of pursuing the fleeing Persians on the flanks, the Greek wings executed a coordinated turn inward. They collapsed on the Persian center from both sides. It was a double envelopment, one of the most difficult maneuvers in ancient warfare, executed by part-time citizen soldiers in the chaos of battle. The Persians broke. What followed was a slaughter. Persian soldiers threw down their weapons and ran for the beach, desperate to reach their ships. Greek hoplites chased them into the surf, killing men as they scrambled aboard. One Athenian warrior, Cynaegirus, grabbed the stern of a Persian ship with his bare hands. A Persian axe severed his hand at the wrist. He grabbed with the other. They cut that off too. He died holding a Persian ship with his teeth. When the killing finally stopped, the beach was carpeted with bodies. Persian dead, 6,400, Athenian dead, 192. Yet the Persians still had ships and an army. They remained a threat, able to sail to Athens and take the undefended city. The Athenians, exhausted and bleeding, had to win the battle twice. Miltiades ordered his men to march, immediately, 26 miles. In full armor, after fighting the bloodiest battle of their lives. They had to reach Athens before the Persian fleet. The Athenians marched through the night. When the Persian fleet rounded the Cape and approached Athens harbor at dawn, they saw something that shattered their morale. The same army they'd just fought at Marathon, battered, bloodied, but unbroken, stood waiting on the cliffs above the city. The Persians turned their ships around and sailed home. Athens had won, against impossible odds. And the consequences were immediate. Marathon proved that the Persian army, the force that had conquered the known world, could be beaten. It proved that free men fighting for their homes could defeat professional soldiers fighting for a king. But the cost was real. Of the 192 Athenian dead, we know many of their names. They were buried together in a mass grave on the battlefield, a mound that still exists today. The Spartans arrived the next day. Too late to fight, but in time to honor the dead. Marathon didn't end the Persian threat. 10 years later, Darius's son Xerxes would return with an even larger army. The Greeks would face annihilation again at Thermopylae, then ultimate victory at Salamis and Plataea. But Marathon was the spark. Here's what history books don't fully explain. Without Marathon, there's no Athenian Golden Age, no Parthenon, no Socrates, Plato, or Aristotle, no birth of democracy, philosophy, or Western theater. The historian John Stuart Mill wrote, "The Battle of Marathon is more important than the Battle of Hastings, even as an event in English history." He was right. Marathon's legacy isn't just military, it's ideological as well. By showing that small nations can resist empires, it demonstrates how a single battle on a single morning can change the trajectory of human civilization. And yes, this battle is why we run 26.2 miles and call it a marathon. According to legend, a messenger named Pheidippides ran from Marathon to Athens to announce victory, then collapsed and died. Probably myth. But powerful myth. The truth is even better. An entire army ran that distance. Twice. Once to fight. Once to save their city. And they won both races. Marathon reminds us, history isn't inevitable. Choices matter. Courage, strategy, and timing can defeat overwhelming force. 490 BC was 2,500 years ago. But the lessons from that beach in Greece echo forward to every underdog who refused to surrender. If you want more deep-dive military history like this, battles that changed everything, hit the like button and subscribe.